or somewhere around in there. I graduated with Hannah, whatever her name is these days, and which is unusual to have a parent graduate with their child, so it was pretty exciting. But in the course of those studies, I was able to go back to school, and I felt like I was kind of validating with many of the things I already knew, but I'd never gone to college, so didn't really know. I had a lot of life experience, as we all have with the church. And in the course of the classes, one of the professors was talking about how interpretation is infinite. And he says, let me give you an example. And he's telling of what he did in his class. He says, I stood up before the class and I asked everyone to just take a moment, close their eyes, and I'm going to give a word. I'm going to say a word of an object. And then I'm going to start describing aspects of that word. And think honestly, as soon as I say the word, an image will happen in your mind. And we're going to discover something together. So everybody closed their eyes, and they're waiting. And he said, everybody's waiting for some magic word. Apple. Now, as I describe an apple, if it matches what you were thinking, raise your hand. Keep your eyes closed, and I'll keep score. Red. Floating in space on a tree, in a bowl, with other apples or with other fruits. Green. Yellow, little spots, a stem and a leaf. So he finalized that after going through a lot of different examples. And he says, it's a miracle that human beings can communicate at all when out of such a simple item, seen by everyone on the planet basically, we have so many variances of description. And so the fact that we can say something and actually have someone else think pretty much the same as we are is more rare than common. There's always going to be some variance. So I thought, well, that's pretty true also with the divine principle in any philosophy or religious thought in human history, is there will be an original speaker with an original thought of what those words mean. In our case, we have the divine principle, and the original spiritual and physical endurance and sacrifices that make those words real to whom? Initially, to true parents of God. So as we hear the words, we're kind of bound by our own life and descriptions and concepts and historical and logical and cultural. So I thought, one of the things current today is we have all kinds of conflicts around the world. World peace is always something someone has sought, but under different conditions, depending on who the winner was. So throughout the ages, we've had the struggle between Cain and Abel and all its applications, symbolic and real. And so I'm thinking, some of these words have a whole lot of different meaning now than perhaps when true parents were thinking them. Because right now we've got war in Ukraine, Russia's invading here, North Korea wants to do who knows what with everybody else around them. China's on the warpath, but quietly building forces and implementing a lot of different things. And it's not so much I'm talking about politics, but I'm talking about the restoration course and the parallels of history. Because everything has to be made up from an action for a purpose in the course of restoration. So I've got several excerpts here, and they're not long, but it's a matter of hear them and think of the flow of history and what these the parallels actually mean. Oh, and some of the buzzwords today: democracy, socialism, fascism, and monarchy. So we'll address a couple of those points. The French Revolution established democracy with the proclamation of the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Nevertheless, the democracy born out of the French Revolution was a Cain-type democracy. Although it destroyed absolutism and monarchy, it sought to firmly secure the Cain-type view of life. The leading thinkers behind the French Revolution were the Enlightenment figures such as Diderot and D'Alembert, who adhered to the atheistic or the materialism, or adhered to atheism or materialism. Furthermore, despite the ideals of individual freedom and equality, the actual course of the French democracy in the years of the revolution and afterward tended towards totalitarianism. Able-type democracy. From their very origins, the democracies which emerged in England and the United States were different from the democracy born out of the French Revolution. The latter was a Cain-type democracy founded by atheists and materialists who were raised in the Cain-type view of life. As they attempted to dismantle absolutism and feudalism, the English and American democracies, on the other hand, were founded by sincere Christians, the fruits of the able-type view of life, and were born out of their victorious fight with absolutism to win religious freedom. Hence, these are able-type democracies. What decides God's side and Satan's side? The question of which nations are on God's side and which are on Satan's side is decided based on the direction of God's providence and restoration, providence of restoration. Those who are in line with the direction of God's providence or are acting in concert with that direction, even indirectly, are on God's side, while those who take opposing position are on the side of Satan. In the modern world systems which espouse the able-type view of life belonging to God's side, while those which espouse Cain-type view life stands on Satan's side. For example, no matter how ethical and sacrificial a materialistic thought rooted in the Cain-type view may appear to be, or may appear from a humanistic perspective, it still belongs to Satan's side. For this reason, the communist world can be judged to be a satanic world. On the other hand, since the democratic world, which grants religious freedom, is based on the able-type view of life, it may be judged to be on God's side. In the First World War, the Allied powers, led by Great Britain and the United States, France, and Russia, were Christian nations. Moreover, they've been fighting to liberate the Christians under persecution in Turkey. Thus, they stood on God's side. On the other hand, Germany and Austria-Hungary and the leading Central Powers supported Turkey, a Muslim nation which persecuted Christianity. Therefore, together with Turkey, they stood on Satan's side. With the defeat of the satanic world and its ruler Kaiser, the world on God's side won the formation stage victory and laid the foundation for the birth of the returning Christ, who was destined to be the Lord of God's world. Contemporaneous with this, communism was established in Russia. Stalin soon rose to power as the antitype of Christ, and the second advent on Satan's side began. The nation of fascism, the nature of fascism. What then is fascism? Fascism denies the fundamental values of modern democracy. including respect for the individual and the basic rights, freedoms of speech, the press and association, and the parliamentary system. Race or nationality is the ultimate values to be upheld by a strong nation state. Individuals and institutions exist only for the benefit of the state. Under fascism, individuals cannot claim freedom as their individual right. They are to sacrifice their freedom in their duty to serve the state. The guiding political principle of fascism holds that all power and authority should be entrusted to one supreme leader rather than distributed amongst people. And this is kind of an interesting concept where, under certain circumstances, both able side and Cain side unite to destroy something that's hazardous or detrimental to either of them. And I don't think I ever remember remembering this, actually. You never think of Satan's side and God's side actually able to work together towards a common goal. Just as God's providence progresses while riding on the currents of its time, Satan's efforts to build an unprincipled imitation of the ideal world is also bound to the currents of its time. When the prevailing social order obstructs the formation of new societies, including those furthering Satan's goals, and Satan joins in the fight to destroy it. In this case, we're talking about the Second World War, in which the Allied nations also included Russia. But as soon as the war was finished, there was a separation right away like oil and water. That's a phrasing in here. Here, we'll finish that. In a similar fashion, fascism had become an obstacle to both Satan's side and God's side. Because the providence of restoration through indemnity required God temporarily permit Satan's side to form the communist world, the Soviet Union in the Second World War was allowed to join forces with the nations on God's side to destroy fascism, in order that it might quickly build up its communist state. Nevertheless, as soon as the Second World War was over, the communist world and the democratic world separated like oil and water. Just a couple more here. The Third World War. At the consummation of human history, Satan's side and God's side will survive until they each attain sovereignty over a world. I thought that was interesting. Phrasing. It wasn't over the world, it was over a world, because they're both dealing with a world of Cain's side and a world of Abel's side. This is why the democratic world and the communist world stand confronting each other. Consequently, it becomes inevitable that there will be wars, first to divide and then to unify these two worlds. The First and Second World War had the providential purpose of dividing the globe into the communist world and the democratic world. Afterward, yet another war must take place to bring about the unification. This conflict is the Third World War. It's inevitable that the Third World War take place. However, there are two possible ways it may be fought. One way to bring Satan's side to surrender is through armed conflict. However, at the conclusion of the conflict, there should come an ideal world in which all humanity is to rejoice together. This can never be built merely by defeating enemies in battle. Afterward, they must be brought to submission internally, that everyone may reconcile and rejoice sincerely from the bottom of their hearts. To accomplish this, there must come a perfect ideology which can satisfy the desires of the original nature of all people. So by which way of these two wills will the Third World War actually be fought? It depends on the success or failure in carrying out the human portion of responsibility. Therefore, the providence of restoration can be completed only by fallen people, after fallen people restore their heart towards God through God's life-giving word. And they are saved both spiritually and physically and inherent to God's lineage. The victories of God's side in the 3 world wars will fully restore through indemnity all these aspects of the providence of restoration. They will make possible the realization of God's ideal world, for which God has labored with unremitting tears over the centuries of human misery since the fall. This ends the reading. It's hard to think of all the pain through history. The Battle Hymn of the Republic would not have been my choice for today. Because, while we were rehearsing, Hannah had a spiritual connection that brought tears. And I think I was going to finish, I think I still will, but I'll have someone else read this because under the circumstances I'll probably get too choked up again. Even though it's the first time reading for somebody. John.
Say anything before I read it? At heaven's gate. Gotta be able to see it. Horizons pale and far surround us. Beneath the sky we stand alone. Colors beyond our searching hands. Before the gates have we atoned. We close our eyes, the darkness comes. We turn and stride the paths of thought. Through corridors of time we're walking. The walls are bare of what we've sought. We seek the visions of times yet lived. The times our eyes will meet and merge. We strive for times of tears and laughter. All thoughts of self, our hearts are purged. True parents grow, the seasons pass. The lives of two that live as one. The tears of God make green the grass. They share the earth, the sky, the sun. Through countless lives and lands he's striven, though endless pain and hearts of stone. With tears of joy now earth is heaven. The sins of man have been atoned. Mark Nielsen, late 1970s.
I think from there, we have to look into our own hearts, look at the events around us, who's around us, what we're doing, what we're sharing, and feel that we are valuable people. Not arrogant, not overly proud, but found. So we have a lot to be grateful for. And each of us has to view those things in the infinite, and we have different expressions based on who we are, what we felt, what we've done, what we hope to do. So let's go forward. Today is another adage, first day of the rest of your lives. Thank you. Thank you, Heavenly Parent, for each day of life and every breath in it. I want to always be grateful that we live in the age of true parents. We've been able to receive a blessing of grace that we might take part in the restoration of humankind through a reversal of evil blood lineage. I want to go forward today with hope and happiness and joy, being able to use our infinite mind and heart for creativity and happiness. And thank you. We want to offer ourselves always upholding the names of our beloved true parents as Mark and Ann Nilsson and the blessed community of our Triangle Church. Adieu. Amen.
Adieu.